Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome and thank you for joining us for this afternoon's live panel discussion, which forms part of the Workplace and Facility Expo's virtual festival. My name is Hugh Robinson, and I am the Exhibition Director for Workplace and Facilities Expo Ireland, which unfortunately cannot be physically held due to the pandemic this year. However, Workplace and Facilities Expo will take place next year on the 1st and 2nd of March 2022 at the RDS in Dublin. The virtual festival consists of 6 live panel discussions, 2 per day over the next 3 days, and features industry leaders and experts discussing key areas affecting all those involved in creating workplaces and facilities, whether in Ireland or internationally. As well as the live panel discussion, the festival also has a range of on-demand content which can be accessed through the Workplace and Facilities Expo website. This afternoon's webinar is entitled The Role of Technology in the Workplace and features an exceptional panel of experts. This session is organised in association with the IWFM, and I would like to thank them for their assistance in sourcing speakers and moderating the content. If you would like to ask any questions, please put these in the moderated chat box and they shall be addressed at the end of the discussion. This webinar will be recorded and uploaded to the Workplace and Facilities Expo website as additional on-demand content. The moderator for this afternoon's panel discussion is Peter Brogan, Head of Research and Insight at the IWFM. So without further ado, I shall hand over to Peter. Peter.
Thanks, Hugh, and welcome everyone to this webinar. Unfortunately, yes, it's all by the role of technology, and we're using some tech to deliver this webinar today. As you know, we've all been using technology more and more since, unfortunately, the pandemic. So today we're going to delve into the role of technology in the workplace, but not talk about the current or past future of technology, but actually, to a degree, what are the obstacles and challenges for technology for workplace and FM, and potentially what is the way forward. So a bold step, but I would encourage as many of the participants, viewers, to send questions in. We're trying to make this as interactive as possible. But as you've already mentioned, we've got a stellar panel, and hopefully you can see all those beautiful people in front of you there. But as I tend to do as hosting, I don't like to read off long bios and then you're into a webinar for 30 minutes. What I will do is kick off by asking our panelists to introduce themselves, and just a nice icebreaker for the audience and get us warmed up, really, of what's changed for you when it comes to technology over the last 12 months, if at all, from a personal perspective and also an organisational perspective. So I've been told I'm the perfect gentleman, but I was told, I didn't say that, I believe it myself. So Dr. Claire Penny, I'm going to start with your dear self, Claire, and then I will move on to the other panellists. So Claire, good afternoon.
Thank you. Thanks, Peter. Yes, so I'm Claire Penny. I am from the UK originally, but please don't hold that against me. I've been in Ireland for well over 20 years now, and I came from academia and joined IBM in an operational role in environmental management in the real estate division. And that's where I pretty much stayed for the next 19 years of my career, navigating many, many different careers within IBM, but always with the backdrop of buildings and smart buildings. And was part of the smart building team for many, many years. After being in the operational space, I moved into the software space and was part of a team and some really smart people who way back in about 2008, I think it was, developed some rules-based engines, taking data from assets to understand how assets were performing whilst in operation. And this was really exciting. And I moved with that particular innovation into its product form and helped to grow that within the IBM business. And then that moved smoothly on into the AI space and the cognitive building space within IBM, and also became very, very passionate about this digital twin concept that was born way back in the kind of product space, but hadn't really been applied to buildings. So I then eventually left IBM and joined a small IoT startup and stayed there for a year, and then got the opportunity to join Invocara, who's my current employer, to really focus on this digital twin story and how we get that out into the world, basically, because it's something that really, really excites me. And so in terms of the questions, I mean, the biggest thing for me, actually, not in the short term, but the kind of medium term, is how when we started the rules-based engines, I could never get around my head like how we couldn't just access the data. It was like I was just one of these almost salesy people that just thought technology happened, via Wi-Fi and things like this, wireless, the whole shebang. And I think that has moved on so dramatically now. It's just completely taken for granted that we can access the Wi-Fi wherever we are. I mean, anybody who has children, and this is a bit cliched now, but it's like they would go without water than go without Wi-Fi. Do you know what I mean? It's like that, given the choice, water or Wi-Fi, they choose the Wi-Fi. So that, for me, the connectivity of where we are today is really amazing. And that's been, a journey, but it's a reasonably short journey. And then again, from a professional perspective, is the whole digital twin is about having that digital replica of a physical asset, almost like the empathy and the emotion of the building and the digital side, and the kind of big, strong, kind of muscular side of the physical side, marrying those together to give the whole, I think is a perfect storm, and where the technology is going. Thank you, Peter.
Thanks, Claire. And I'm sure we're going to delve more into that. And you've demonstrated to the other panelists how it should be done. So thank you for that. So no pressure, chaps. So moving on, I like to move on. So I've got a bit of feedback from David. So David Williams, good afternoon.
Hello, Peter. How are you doing? Good to see you again, my friend. So David Williams, work for Microsoft. I live in the UK, but I actually am part of the corporation team out of Redmond, where I am the industry lead for smart places and real estate. I've been at Microsoft for 15 years now, and the job that I'm currently in is part of an innovation team. And a lot of people say, so why would anyone talk to Microsoft about smart places and real estate? Well, that was exactly what I said when my boss said to me 4 years ago, David, you're going to take a leading role in working out what Microsoft's role is in real estate and smart places. So it's been a heck of a journey, and it's been great fun. I think one of the questions we were looking to answer was, or we were thinking about was, how has technology changed for me over the last 12 months? I think probably for someone who works for Microsoft, you wouldn't be surprised to say not a lot, really, other than I don't travel anymore, and that's nothing to do with technology. Luckily, we've always been a very hybrid working organization. I can't remember a time I've ever gone into an office other than to actually meet another human being. But it is interesting how the pandemic has kind of changed people's use of technology. And I think I don't think it's really changed anything major. I think all it's done is accelerated a couple of trends that we were seeing. The first one is hybrid working. We were seeing it anyway, frankly, but it was being held up by, you could argue, poor management, concerns about using space that people are already paying for. That's certainly accelerated. And the other thing that's accelerated from a technology perspective is people's access to secure remote working technologies. Again, it was a trend that was happening, but it's just really accelerated. I think in my personal life, technology, God, not a lot really. I'm listening to a lot of podcasts. I'll tell you that. I'm listening to a heck of a lot of podcasts, and I would recommend a few. If you're interested in the Second World War, excellent podcast, We Have Ways of Making You Talk, with Al Murray and James Holland. Another one I'd recommend if you're into football, The Price of Football, absolutely superb. And if you like really good interviews, Full Disclosure with James O'Brien. That's my contribution.
Thank you, David, and some extra content there for podcasts. So thank you for that, and I'm sure we'll hear a lot more from you later. I'd like to introduce Connor, and he's the only person on this panel today with the Irish accent, and he's in Cork, which I was shocked you tell me it's sunny there. So last time I was in Cork, I got completely drenched, Connor. So good afternoon.
Yeah, so you must have been here one of the other 364 days. So obviously, Peter. So look, delighted to be here today. Look, it's great to be asked onto this kind of panel. So it's very topical, I suppose, to start off with. So Conor Cooney is my name. I'm with Arup. I just celebrated 22 years. So I've been chipped and everything now at this stage with Arup. I'm an associate director, and I'm leading the asset and facility management team in Ireland and developing that across Europe also. So I started off with Arup back in 1999 as a building services engineer. And like most in the FM industry, I got into facility management by mistake. And here I am now 15, 16 years later after starting that journey. But, it has been highly enjoyable since. I mean, what I like most about the industry is the the variety of different types of projects, the different types of people, and all the different parts that make up facility management. And even today, we talk about digital, and it's only just one aspect of it. And even if this was kind of catching up on some of the aspects of it, the more you go into it, the more you realize how huge it is in itself. So our business, I suppose, looks specifically at kind of, what are the responsible business, what are the drivers for our clients, around business resilience, of the facility management, performance evaluation, investment planning, and digital integration. So being an asset and facility management team, what we look at is kind of how do we use our solutions, how do we tell our story to the clients, and also, how do we give them a solution, either that's going to just establish kind of to get to a certain point, or an enduring solution, something that they can kind of proceed with themselves there afterwards. So, how has technology changed in the last 12 months? Well, within Arup, certainly it's one of our main 4 pillars within our Arup strategy, our global strategy. So digital kind of transformation. And that's in everything that we would do then. It's how we kind of act and how we perform, even our own internal processes. We want to make those as lean as possible to make it more efficient in the terms of the work that we do. And as I just mentioned, also in terms of how we deliver solutions for our clients. The most significant thing I've seen in the last 12 months, even 18 months, and it's probably the area I'm going to focus more on today rather than the technical insides of smart technology, is actually asset information strategy. Because we've seen significant number of clients looking for software tools, sensor technologies, predictive maintenance, all these kind of buzzwords that are out there at the moment, but without actually fully understanding why they need it in the first place. So a lot of kind of what I'll probably be discussing is taking that step back and understanding what is the link between the business goals in itself and how does asset management align to that, and specifically the asset information strategy. So there's people here that are very well versed in asset data capture, know far more than I do, but I'll have a slightly different angle from that today. So that's me. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Connor, and congratulations on your 22 years. That's amazing. So congrats again. So last but not least, Mark Griffiths, another gentleman I've known for many years. So good afternoon, Mark. You know the protocol by now. So a little introduction about yourself and also how technology's changed for you and your organisation over the last 12 months.
Yeah, no worries. Well, good to see you again, Pete, and good to see the rest of the panel, everyone else on today's webinar. Mark Griffiths. So 2 years ago, took the bold decision to set up my own FM and workplace consultancy after 20 plus years working in FM operations at operations director level. The whole point of that consultancy is to really bring collaborative solutions to our clients, mainly from a technology-based viewpoint. So for me, I was, when I had a proper job, an engineer by profession a long time ago now, but it was a long time ago, and always focused on the building services and making best use of the technology. And that was underpinned by some good stints with the Honeywells and Johnson Controls of their time in the last century, working at the sharp end of delivering operational service and seeing what technology could do then. That then evolved into me working on some large infrastructure schemes where BIM and 3D modelling and the like, before it became BIM, was being spoken about, and what you could do with things such as COBE and asset tagging and joining all the dots together for infrastructure. And it's stuck with me ever since. So I've always had an interest in making the best use of technology. I'm sure we'll come on to it later, but I'm a great believer we should embrace the data that's available to us rather than resist it as FMs. I think it's something we don't do enough of. The last 12 months for me have been interesting. Starting your own business probably 8 or 9 months before a global pandemic, I wouldn't recommend to anybody. Touch wood, it's worked out. And we've got some very interesting drivers with some interesting clients at the moment that's really opening up lots of avenues now to best utilise technology to add value to their particular businesses. And I think trying to manage the soft landings on a multi-million pound office relocation for a large corporate bank is probably one of the best ways to learn how technology can work for you whilst COVID's flying around the world. So that's been quite interesting. From a personal point of view, nothing has changed for me too much because, as my long-suffering wife will vouch, I love a gadget and invest in them quite heavily. So yeah, for me, I've always liked to stay. I would say I'm ahead of it, but on top of what's going on in the wider world, and trying to make best use of those resources available to us to work a bit smarter, both at home and at work. And hopefully we can do some of that for this afternoon.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you, other panelists. That was great. Just to give as a little intro for our viewers in terms of who you are and also some of the experiences around tech. So I would encourage viewers to send in questions, please, because, again, I would love to hear from the audience that we've got, and we've got quite a number on today's webinar, so that's always good. So we want to keep you as interested as possible, and I'm sure we will, considering the expertise we have on our panel. So no pressure, panelists. There you go again. Right, many of you mentioned already in terms of some of the emerging technologies, but I would just like to dig a little bit deeper to get your viewpoints around which emerging technologies are mostly likely to affect the workplace and FM profession going forward, and how. So I know Connor and Claire respectively, to a degree, all of you did mention some aspects of the emerging techs, but is there anything particularly from your own viewpoint or organisation that you think will that's emerging or currently is here already? So who wants to open up on that?
Well, being a gentleman also, I'll let Claire start.
Swiftly under the bus. Yeah, so personally for me, it's digital twin. It's something I've been passionate about for many years, even as I said when I was in IBM, because it's for me, there's all this data. There's this data at the front end of the whole building life cycle, and then there's even more data during operations, and data and information, and it just seems an absolute complete no-brainer to get this all joined up. And I think BIM has been absolutely fantastic at trying to move the bus, the resistant bus that is this industry that we all love, from the construction perspective, because it is very complicated. There is a huge amount of stakeholders in many, across the supply chain. So to get everybody to move in the same direction is extremely difficult. And I think BIM has been really, really good. But what is actually really still missing is bringing the operations teams, the FM teams in along that journey. And I know, people say she's only talking about new builds here. And yeah, for that whole, I guess, supply chain, it is premised on new builds, but there's also major CapEx projects that go on during a building's life cycle, on and on and on. And there's no reason why an existing building that's, 100 years old cannot have a digital twin. There's no reason at all. It has a floor plan. It has all the assets in there, more than likely using some software to, do the preventative maintenance. There'll be all ERP systems connected with those buildings. So all that information exists. It's just about being able to access it really quickly and not view the information and data in a silo. And that, for me, is the key, is to enable true investigation of what is going on in the building and have full line of sight of all the systems and how everything links into each other. And if I do this over here, potentially what happens over there, and I did that over there, and did that happen over here? So it's not just about simulation either, it's about actually what is going on in the building. And that starts with good quality, solid information that can be passed along the supply chain, that, it is machine readable as well as human readable. It's not just about BIM and the data that's in the BIM model, and it's not just about the FM systems, the other end. It's about all these other pieces of information and tagging that all together. So as you can see, I'm extremely passionate about digital twin, and I just think it's the birth of a revolution for everybody, particularly on the FM side of the house. I think it's going to be game changing completely.
That's great, Claire. And I think there's some issues and challenges around some of that data collection and also the analysis of that data, which we might come into later. Going back to emerging tech, who wants to come in next?
Yeah, I'm happy. I'll go on, Connor.
Sorry. So I suppose, look, CMMS and CAFM systems and even prop tech, they are probably they're well established at this stage, but they do tend to evolve in terms of how wide, in terms of features offerings. Definitely, I think the focus is around energy optimization, space optimization, Predictive maintenance, I say that with a question mark, and staff productivity. Around predictive maintenance, we've seen a significant number of clients looking for this without actually taking a step back to understand why they need it specifically. And we would suggest looking at reliability centered maintenance maybe first to help define which maintenance strategy is best actually suited, and then decide if actually predictive maintenance, and that only may be for specific asset classes in that instance. In terms of measuring productivity, I would be wary about using what kind of metrics are being used. Certainly, we moved into a fantastic new office in Cork only about 4 years ago, and while we had a perceived productivity increase of around 25%. I think the actual was much lower than that. But look, it did have a number of many other indirect impacts, which was including there was less sick leave as a result. There was better staff attraction, better staff retention, all because of these benefits. One of the things on BIM also, I agree with Claire completely. But when we were looking at this even 4 years ago, it was BIM for FM is what we had looked at, and the issue there, I think, is that it's too exclusive to just facility management only. In order to make BIM useful, we need to look at the wider operations team, and that can include HR, it can include IT, finance. Everybody needs to be part of that process. That's operations, to keep the business running. And once they become involved and see the benefits of BIM and a digital twin, then I'm sure the value of it then will go up incrementally as a result.
Yeah, and for our audience, obviously building information modelling is the BIM term for those not aware of it, and I'm sure many of our audience are. But I recall many people at the start of BIM actually said it's about better information management, and maybe the whole acronym was probably centred around that more, because it's not just about AutoCAD and 3D drawings of buildings, which is an interesting point. But I don't want to hog as a host, so I will move on to David. So you wanted to bring in, David, your point around and intriguing from a Microsoft perspective about emerging tech, some that might not be emerging or are currently with us now.
Yeah, I think so. In my introduction, I mentioned that I've been in this role now for 4 years, and Microsoft's interest in this, and when I think about what we bring to the industry, it is around digital innovation, and it was our appreciation, and Claire articulated the value of a digital twin very well. It was our appreciation of the ability to enable people to create digital twins, because the concept, as Claire said, the concept and comment, the concept of digital twins has been around for years, frankly, but to actually create a proper digital twin has always been incredibly expensive. And has also been incredibly complicated when you start thinking about the relationships between assets in a building, and that kind of ontology of that particular device being in that particular building, in that particular room, on that floor, in that building, in that campus, etc. And also we've talked about the quantity of data created from a building. Now, so from a Microsoft perspective, there's been a series of digital innovations that's got us to a point now where we are confident talking about it. And it really started with public cloud. So public cloud broke the barrier of having to buy servers up front. So you only pay on subscription. So again, you manage your costs with the amount of data you collect. Then the Internet of Things, of course, the ability to actually extract data securely from a building. Then, of course, that split of data between a public cloud and on the edge, as we call it, what data needs to remain in the building, what data can go to the cloud and take advantage of that. And then moving through artificial intelligence, and machine learning, predictive maintenance, analytics, and all that, and then a digital twin. And that kind of, those 5 areas of technology that obviously Microsoft have invested heavily in and have got services available in, really made us look at the real estate industry, smart places industry, and think, right, now we can do something that can help the people that we work with, the partners that we work with, to build true digital twins at a cost that makes them actually sellable, and also in a timescale, a development timescale that means you can actually bring a brand new digital twin solution to market in months rather than years. So those were the real dynamic changes that we've seen at a macro level with technology emerging over the last, I would say, 5 years.
No, thanks, David. And Mark, from your viewpoint and obviously working with clients, what have you found to be the emerging tech?
I think the ones that I see on the horizon coming down the track are indoor air quality monitoring in this post-COVID world. I think there's going to be much more of a push to, ironically enough, make better use of the space, not from an optimization perspective and not loading accommodation with people, actually spreading them out and having control about how you operate that facility. We're working on something else at the moment with that, Pete, aren't we, with another organisation? But there's lots and lots of directives coming out now, and we all focus about the experience of a workplace or a campus or whatever it might be. People are going to be much more discerning about where they work, wanting to know how well your ventilation is controlled, what the quality of the air is, how that's being monitored and maintained. What are the safety measures that you're putting in place to make people feel that they want to return to some kind of hybrid workplace? Because I do believe that's where we're going to end up. I don't think everyone's going to work from home all the time. But equally, I don't think everyone's going to be all in the office 5 days a week. There'll be a blend there, and it will ebb and flow, and you've got to have something that moves with that. So understanding the data that arrives from that and being able to use that in a productive way will help you with the productivity of the employees working in your workplace. I think that's a huge one that's going to change quite quickly. I think one slightly further down the track is the impact of net zero carbon. That's going to be very data-driven, massively data-driven, and with some of the ambitious targets that are out there from both government organisations and some large corporates that are committing to it, you're going to have to react to that data very quickly, almost in real time, be able to drive that data to make strategic business decisions. And that's going to be a huge piece, whether that's on a new facility. We're working with an NHS client at the moment that has the luxury of being able to build a new hospital, but that comes with some pressures because there's lots of mandate from government about what it's going to look and feel like, and it also has an affordability envelope. The organisations are also going to be driving that agenda. You know, you've seen what people like Mace are doing. They're making some very big commitments about what they're going to do. Other organisations are going to follow suit in terms of where they go, what they do, what their buildings are going to look like. That's also going to make them more appealing for the landlord developers as well. So there's lots that needs to happen there. It's going to happen in a quick period of time. So those two, I think, are other items in conjunction with all the other good stuff that's been mentioned so far that's really going to catch the industry and encourage it to be more fleet of foot moving forward.
Yeah, and certainly hygiene in the workplace is going to be, I think, one of the major barriers for that return to the office in particular. And I'll be intrigued later on in the conversation, Connor, with that building that's 4 years old, how you're going to encourage people to return to it. So maybe we could go on to that later. Thank you for those already bringing questions forward. And one's already coming up about also all this great tech, and obviously it's safe to say FM probably wasn't early adopters of some of this tech compared to other sectors. But from your experience, that's from a client's and personal perspective, what do you believe is FM's awareness of all this technology? We've mentioned BIM, we've mentioned digital twins, we've mentioned IoT, smart buildings, health and well-being monitors in terms of air quality. Actually, from your experience, where is FM on this? I appreciate that we're going to be at different ends of the track, but Claire, I see your hand up. This software doesn't allow for that. There are other software platforms that allow hands up, which I'm sure David's aware of them. But Claire, I saw your hand go straight up there. From your perspective, where is FM on this journey?
So I think the FM industry absolutely 100% knows all of this stuff. They know, what technologies are out there. They know what's available. I think the biggest challenge for FM companies, particularly companies that take on an outsourcing model, is the finances to enable to do this, and the finances and the risk aversion So they don't want to be bleeding edge, because the first to go, if this goes wrong, it's going to cost money on the P&L for this account, and I'm going to be in trouble. It's not a nice place for me to be. So I'll just tip along and carry on doing what the SLA says, and I won't, go beyond that. I think there are, companies out there that are doing their utmost to embrace all of these technologies, but there's a responsibility of the owners and the people who pay the bills to encourage and help the FM industry to take these leaps of faith into these areas, and not, when it has to be done and it's a big mad rush because the legislation says you have to have it, you have to do it now because of whatever law has been passed. I think if contracts were different and it allowed for companies to implement all of these great offerings, I think, or great technologies, it would be a better place. And there's also an immaturity, particularly in the prop tech area as well. And in the IoT company I was in, we were building IoT sensors to do occupancy monitoring, and it's all really good stuff, but it's all quite young. And so again, there's a risk factor involved. In order for it to be extremely beneficial for me, I have to have these sensors across all of my real estate, which is a huge portfolio, which runs into the hundreds of thousands of, pounds, dollars, euros. Who's going to take that risk based on, very little ROI that's been presented to date? I mean, everybody knows it, and theoretically, I can bang out numbers about ROI till I'm blue in the face, but until they say, okay, put somebody on the telephone that's going to talk me through this and their experience of the ROI, it's kind of like, oh, okay. In IBM, when we were doing the rules-based engines, and it was about energy, so it was really ahead of its time. The prize was, I guess the thesis was that we were going to reduce energy consumption by understanding that assets were performing as they were commissioned to perform. So we would pick up any deviances in performance, and we would be able to address them. And it was all, there was no automation involved. It was somebody would go and address the situation. What actually was the winner was the amount of time it took to execute a work order was massively reduced, because the rule told us what the problem was and who to send pretty much to go and fix it. Also, reactive maintenance was reduced massively, and the energy ended up being the gravy on the top. The little oh, by the way, we saved some energy while we were doing this. And, to get that out, but sorry, where I was going with that story, apologies, was that the people who we wanted to deliver this, the real estate people, were like, get away from my system, You're asking me to put an unproven set of rules across my BMS system, and for me to just accept that. First of all, are you telling me I'm not doing my job properly? And secondly, where have you done this before, and was it successful? It's like, yeah, but we're all IBM here. Let's work on this together. It was like, no, go away. Anyway, eventually we got it to work, and they were the savings. They were huge, massive savings, so it's just about who's going to jump first, and do the contracts allow it, and is somebody going to get into trouble if if it fails a little bit, and we have to learn from that. So for me, I think they're very aware, but I think there's so many hurdles, and it takes a brave company to jump those hurdles.
It's intriguing as you say that, Claire, and I appreciate you've not seen the questions, but the questions are flying through literally on your point there, in terms of, has any of the panelists seen a cost-benefit analysis that supports a digitized, if I put my teeth in, asset management solution? So that whole debate, is there a return on investment? Because I guess for FM, many times the pantomime villain is procurement, and that the old dreaded cost versus value debate when it comes to FM. But is there anyone from experience that has seen the return on investment, but is it just not publicly known, or are we missing a trick? So David, you got your hand up there. Well, you did have.
Yeah, there is a very clear return on investment as one looks across the scenarios that you might consider as part of a smart place or smart building. So if we just take, predictive maintenance of building management systems, applying fault and detection rules, etc., etc. Claire's perfectly articulated that, and the way in which we and Microsoft have done that is we've applied that technology to our own buildings, and by doing it ourselves, we now have that's how we started. We had great case studies that we would be very open and honest about. We would let customers come and actually speak to the people sitting in the FM control rooms at our 129 building campus in Redmond, and go through the numbers with them and show people. We've now got plenty of very good customer references as well. So we can, if you're looking at the building management systems and you're looking at the equipment management, the ROI on that is rock solid now. I mean, it really is. I mean, I have partners working with Microsoft Technologies that will go and do a survey of your building or buildings and will say, right, okay, we understand if you don't get the return on investment of the cost of this within 18 months, we'll give you the money back. Now, as you move through to other areas such as occupancy, such as space utilization, etc., it gets more difficult. It does get more difficult. And as Connor said, we've all seen the kind of like the equations that say, oh, it's worth this, worth that, worth anything else. And those generic models are frankly almost worthless, in my honest opinion. And so you do have to just do the boring work, and you have to grind through the benefit analysis. And you just have to go, in that particular case, and I've been involved in a number of occasions now, where you can actually articulate the value of being able to book space, being able to identify when space is well utilized, etc., etc. Moving again to productivity, it gets more difficult again. It's less tangible again. But again, there are ways of measuring that with data and with survey, actually asking the people in that office how they feel about it. So you can actually calculate these things, but it's an imprecise art. And I think as Claire said, and I think it was Mark said, it's easy to say it's a risk-averse industry. It's a risk-averse industry, and you have to show and prove it. And as I said, we started by doing it ourselves, being very honest and open about what we've done in our own buildings. We've got 770 buildings worldwide. We own about half of them. We rent about half of them. So we can kind of talk about the benefits of what you can do in buildings that you rent as opposed to buildings you actually own. And again, we'll be very honest and say, do you know what? When you've got 2 floors of a building in the middle of Moscow, you're pretty limited what you can do, frankly. But if you own a campus of 120 buildings, then there's a lot you can do. So yeah, it's showing those case studies, showing those worked examples, and as more of those come out, not only from us, from IBM and from Johnson Controls and Honeywell and Siemens and CBRE and et cetera, then the industry will slowly see that there is the value, and just because it's difficult doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Mark, I think you were going to come in on a point.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is us from all the different directions we're coming into in this industry is articulating the value of what we do and encouraging people to be more risk aware rather than risk averse. I think that natural inclinations, especially from some larger organisations, is, oh no, we can't possibly do that. But using the energy sector as an example that was cited just now, that has grown exponentially in the last few years, and those people in those industries now are a lot more comfortable in giving those assurances. I think David mentioned about, well, if we haven't got that return within X months, then that's our risk.
Yeah.
And I think that ultimately that's what's going to have to happen, because our industry is driven by money, not being too blunt about it, but that's the reality. Businesses are in business to make money. The people who go to work are there to be paid. They get paid because their businesses make money. It all goes around in that ever so virtuous circle. But that's what it is. And if we can, it's an age-old problem for FMs generally. They need to articulate the value that they offer to businesses, and then they're influencing the C-suite a lot more.
So who are we really trying to convince here when it comes, we talk about leadership and the Americanism of C-suite? From your experience, who are the skeptics? Is it? I've already put them under the bus, to use Claire's analogy earlier, in terms of procurement, and I might even say CFOs. But is it more than that? Is it simply about what is the return on the bottom line, or is it a lot more complex than that? I'm just intrigued to know, when we talk about leadership and convincing people in organisation, who are we really trying to convince here?
I think, if you don't mind, Pete, I think that's changing a bit, but I think the people you just cited are probably blockers. Not put too fine a point on it. Yeah, apologies to any CFOs in the audience. Nothing meant.
Don't worry, Mark. Our attendance rate is still good.
But I think
20 people leave.
Lots of businesses now are talking about social value and sense of purpose, and without this perhaps going off on a completely different tangent, if you can articulate those things in the right way. Mark Benioff of Salesforce recently said in an article for Forbes that value creates value, and I think the biggest problem is articulating it, understanding it, being consistent with it. When you understand what a particular organisation's values or strategic direction is, me as a consultant can speak to that organisation, be very clear whether they want bells, whistles and fireworks with their FM and workplace service, or if they just want the bells. And you can tailor it to suit that. And when you get that right, that then works for them. You will always get some organisations that change with the wind, but you're not going to. That's never going to go away. But most organisations will be consistent where they go, and if you can articulate that value in the right way, that will work for a Microsoft, or it will work for an SME, or it will work for an Arabs, or it will work for a small consultancy, or whoever else it might be in the middle. You've got to pitch it in the right way, and I think that's where we as an industry suffer at times, not articulating that value and how it's relevant to an organisation, because we just talk generically. I mean, you can talk about it specifically with people. You're showing the value that you bring a lot more.
That's great, Mark. Yeah, and Connor, I'd like to bring you in.
Yeah. Unfortunately, they've taken all my good ideas, but I agree with everything that's just said. About it. It is about defining and validating the value of that. As an industry, we don't translate those benefits well enough, and exactly what Mark just said there. Using the language, I suppose, using their language to kind of bring it across. What I find is that more often than not, or certainly from my perspective, we work with clients or facility management teams, facility management functions. We work with them to build a business case so that they can source the money from the CFOs and CEOs and so on. And it's almost us siding against their own organisation in a way, and it is quite difficult to pull that together. But and look, the metrics aren't always, they're not always hard metrics. There is a lot of assumptions can be put into that, but it can be done. Certainly we would be confident of that. And one thing we have noticed, I suppose, certainly more so in Arab London, and this is actually, it's refreshing to hear, is that there's quite a higher degree of interest from CFOs and COOs in workplace and facility management in recent months and last year or so. They're starting to see the value of the overall impact that the workplace can actually have on the productivity, on kind of staff retention, on recruitment, bringing in the high caliber people. And they understand now that, if we get this right, we can have a really fine-tuned machine, the machine being the operations themselves. I suppose, look, the facility itself is just there to kind of make sure that, people can operate and be productive in that space. But certainly, getting the message across in the language, and it doesn't always have to be, the dollars and euros and pence. Again, as Mark was saying there, ESGs, UN SDGs particularly, becoming really, really important part of this conversation. And we're certainly seeing them a lot becoming much stronger drivers as part of the decision-making process, as opposed to something that's, we did all this work, and by the way, we also ticked a few boxes. People are starting to reverse these around. We, really like to see that. So yeah, it can be done.
Yeah, and I guess it's interesting, Connor, that sometimes these benefits are not always shown on a balance or spreadsheet. That actually it's a culture and trust shift across the organisation, which, as I say, you're not going to see on a budget line.
Yeah, but can be quantified, I suppose. Yeah. It's not to say they can't be quantified. So there's a TOMS model, I believe, that's used by the NHS. Yeah. So I mean, that's kind of one of the more, and there's newer models being published, every few months as well. Like, so that can definitely determine and quantify ESG values.
No, thank you. And to continue the debate, and I think we've just lost Mark, but I'm sure he might join us again. We mentioned about data, Claire, and particularly around digital twin and the importance of data. It's been quoted about that data is the new oil that drives the engine of most organisations. We've heard that. And be honest, there's been quotes in the 1950s about the importance of data, so necessarily nothing new here. But when we talk about data skills and data literacy, is this really FM's problem, or is it more about asking the right questions and get the expertise in? I'd be intrigued to know the panel's view about, are we putting another skill set on top of a very complex role called facilities management, when actually there are probably data scientists, data analysts already out there trained? So I'd be intrigued to know the panel's view on this role about data literacy and data skills, because essentially a lot of this technology is leading organizations to have a better understanding of their business customers, and that's all driven through data. So I don't know, Claire, if you want to kick off. I know you appreciate you've started on money, but I'm happy for others. But Claire,
Yeah, no, I mean, what I'm actually seeing is that companies are embracing digital and data science very much so. I mean, right from construction companies, project management companies, and FM companies. Look at JLL and JLL Spark, and, you know, what they're doing there in terms of innovation and bringing in new companies and understanding it. Because the argument that we used to have, the debate was, we would go to customers and say, you know, you do what you're good at and we'll do what we're good at, and it'll be the marriage of the two together and everybody will be happy. But what, you know, really happened was that the client wanted a data scientist or somebody who understood the data of their industry, you know, and not come with like, you know, well, I've worked in the financial sector for 10 years. I'm a data whiz. I'm going to sort this out for you. So, but I think the roles are being embraced, and I think it's an absolutely brilliant thing, because as you were talking about, you know, lifting FM up, you know, to the C-suite, I think when we start to get these more kind of knowledge roles within the FM, you're going to grow the knowledge economy of FM, which is already huge, right? But get more recognition for that knowledge economy in FM that will raise it up, that will encourage people to want to be in the FM industry. Then will just be self-perpetuating in terms of, you know, the value that it brings. Because I remember a few years ago, I used to do a lot of talking, and I'd say, like, FM is completely invisible until it goes wrong. And you can exactly put yourself in these shoes, right? You go when we used to go into hotel rooms, right? You would go into a hotel room and you wouldn't pick up the phone and go, oh my God, it's really clean, the bathroom's well stocked, you know, the bed's made beautifully, thank you very much. Nobody ever did that, right? But if you walked into that hotel room and the bathroom wasn't stocked, there was no loo roll, and the bed was in bits and they hadn't cleaned it since the last person was in, I mean, your feet wouldn't touch the ground running to the front desk to, you know, shout at them and tell them it's wrong. And it's the same in the workplace. It's invisible until something goes wrong. And I think somehow that has to be flipped to say, you know, for some recognition and acknowledgement that it's invisible because people are working really hard, you know, and the building is working really hard to make it invisible, to give you Wi-Fi, to give you clean, you know, surroundings, to have a hygiene level that's, exceptional. And I think, and it's a long way to say this, and I might be like going off, like pushing it a bit too far, but I do believe that, you know, digital and data science and bringing these roles up and, you know, encouraging this diversity within the workplace is only going to be a great thing, in my opinion.
Thanks, Claire. And David, I'm going to do a plug for IWFM's research, and apologies, research we did with Microsoft around the role of digital partnerships. Now, I'd be intrigued your view, obviously building on that guidance that we produced and is available on the IWFM website, and it's free, I hasten to add. So I've done my sales pitch. But from that perspective, David, your view around this debate for your clients about data literacy, data skills for FM, what's your view and the role of digital partnerships in that?
So there was a couple of comments that I kind of logged onto. One was Connor talking about language, and the other one was Claire talking about what I would call superficial partnering. You know, we've got these skills, you've got these skills, we come together, we bring them together. No, that doesn't work. Language, you know, so for me to go and speak to an FM, whether they're a head of estates, whether they're a key account manager, or whether they're kind of in the independent services brokerage area, frankly, we speak different languages. You know, the things that I articulate, things I talk about, you know, the digital technology world is all about value, not cost. Already this conversation has shown that actually the FM industry is all about cost, not value. It's less Yeah, it's flipped the other way. So the way in which I articulate value, actually, and you'll remember this, Peter, from us speaking to FM colleagues of yours, we kind of initially, we weren't even speaking the same language. So I'm a great believer in active participation and active partnering. And for a company like Microsoft, partnering is in our DNA. One of the things that quite often surprises people when they look into Microsoft is that 95% of Microsoft revenue is through partner. 95% is through partner. Only 5% of our 150 billion, whatever it was, is actually direct sales. So having been in a company like that for 15 years, partnering is just in our DNA. It's just the way we work. And normally, of course, we partner with other digital technology companies who kind of understand partnering as well. So when I started working in real estate and in FM and talking to companies like CBRE, JLL, Sodexo, the bigger companies initially, it was just the language. We were just talking at completely different levels of what on earth are we talking about. And also this idea of partnership. What's that? Vendor, supplier. I hate those terms. I hate them. But that's the way FM talks. They talk about, they're a supplier, they're a vendor. It's almost like no, it's the partnering. And that active partnering has really been revelatory to me, both with construction companies. I know it's not an FM, but with construction companies who have similar dynamics in the construction industry, I would suggest, as the FM industry, with FM companies, with developers, all the way across real estate, that concept of proper partnering and not an adversarial vendor, screw you over that contract detail, blah, 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 blah. That more kind of iterative way of working that I know Claire would recognize from her IBM days and you would recognize today. Yeah. It really, really works. And the challenge is, though, is how on earth do you, as a head of FM or head of estates or an account manager, how do you partner? How do you actually reach out and contact a digital company and start that conversation? And that can be a challenge, but when it happens, it really does make a heck of a difference. And so that's the point I'll make now. For now, is that concept of real partnering and what that actually means, the openness, the sharing of information, and I think, and I will use as an example, when we started talking about smart places from Microsoft's perspective, one of the programs that Microsoft's always run that is incredibly popular with our customers, it's how Microsoft does IT. So when a customer wants to understand how to deploy Teams, we'll go, this is the way we do it, because you'd kind of think if anyone in the world was going to do a really good deployment of Teams, it'd be us. So I stole that idea and built a really close relationship with our real estate and facilities teams around the world, so that, and I've alluded to it already, so that we share very openly our experiences in our buildings, because we actually have retained management of our buildings. We run new builds, we run our remodeling, and we run our day-to-day operations. Clearly, we outsource the actual jobs, but for every Microsoft building, there is a Microsoft full-time employee that's responsible for those roles within that building. And so when we talk about, how can you change an existing building? We can talk about what we did in our office in Schiphol and how we saved $18 million over 10 years by investing $12 million. Yeah. And we're happy to share exactly how we've done that. So yeah, it's that. And when you start building that trust level and people go, yeah, and by the way, this didn't work. We tried this, it didn't work. Then customers start going, okay, this is a proper relationship that we can share with you, and we can understand what worked for you and what didn't work for you, and how we can work with you and your partners.
And I guess that's the art of the possible, David, isn't it, really? Connor, I'm being intrigued from our perspective, obviously with your 22 years being there, and obviously as we embracing tech and the role of tech, how has that changed from a culture perspective when we talk about data skills and data literacy?
Yeah, well, interesting there. I suppose it just kind of, even on David's points there, or certainly, I suppose in my previous role as a building services engineer, what we were offering, I suppose, was almost a product. You got in, you got out, and you were gone. What you can see, excuse me, excuse me. Whereas now, I suppose the DFM, the supply chain, the vendors, or whatever you want to call them, the partners, it's very much as a service, and therefore it's intended as a long-term relationship. And certainly what I've seen is that people want to build on that. They want to build a trust, they want to build a relationship, and they want to be there next year and the year after, in 5 years' time and 10 years' time, and to actually develop and grow that service, together for mutual benefit. So, there's certainly that intent is what I would see, certainly from the supply side. And there has to be kind of a degree of trust, I suppose. That's easy for us to say on the supply side. The client is obviously forking out the money, so therefore, they're putting all the risk towards it. But look, there are means and ways around that too. Certainly, in terms of changing technologies. Sorry, what was your question again, Peter?
No, it's more around obviously with your 22 years experience that I've referred to for the fourth time now. In terms of Arab, where's your digital literacy skills coming from? Is it a partnership model? Is it within? How do you solve the problem of getting the insight around the data you're capturing?
Yeah, so I suppose, understanding clients' needs, I suppose, very in the early days that I got involved with FM, come up with some fantastic ideas, and we go off and try and develop a solution or product or service, whatever that was, and said, this would be fantastic. And then when you go out to the market, clients don't actually want it, invest a lot of time and effort. So change from that mindset to kind of see, let's wait and see what's kind of wanted, Now, some ideas you can push, can be good ideas. You can preempt what's going to be good or not. But we've kind of changed that kind of thinking, I suppose, around the small, but so that it is more demand driven these days. I suppose in the nature of Arab, we're fortunate excuse me, we're fortunate enough that we have, so within our team, we have engineers, I suppose, in construction, professionals and the likes. But within Arab, we have specialists we have software engineers, we have smart buildings engineers, we have, digital people, we have, so basically I can just draw on anyone as and when I need to bring to a client. So the way we generally offer a solution to a client is we kind of have the facility management or asset management kind of principles. We have a domain knowledge where we bring in the engineering skills. We kind of have strategic advisors that are looking at kind of what's the business trying to do as a whole. And the digital integration team then is actually how do we actually solve that problem in a digital fashion. So by combining the four of those together, that's what brings us the best solution then for the client. So, taking any one of those out, what we find is that kind of it can go lopsided because, if we take out the asset management, then the enduring principles and the processes by which this continues can fail. If we don't have the engineering, then maybe we're not getting the right information, and therefore it doesn't hit, the specific needs. The digital solution is obviously the tool to help us kind of, to help the client maintain that, keep the balance in place. So we need all of those in place. Without the strategy, we're heading in the wrong direction in the first place. So having those four elements within a client solution is hugely important to us. And so we draw on those individuals, and we get the right solution then for the client in that case.
Thanks, Connor. And Mark, I guess from your perspective, and obviously being part of our technology SIG at the IWFM, and where we've tried to produce guidance and educational pieces around some of these subjects, what's your view on your experience around this term about FM need to be data literate? Is it FM just need to be asking the right questions to get the experts in? Taking on point the partnership model. I'd be interested your viewpoint on that when we talk about skills and FM.
Yeah, I think if FM doesn't seize the opportunities that good data management offers it will be taken over by others, is my personal view. And I think that I think Claire touched on a point earlier before my broadband decided to play up, so apologies for that. That encouraging people to be part of that business and people entering that career now, a career of choice. And I know IWFM has done a lot of good work on that in the past and can continue to do that to make it an appealing career choice for people leaving school and colleges and universities and everything else. But the data there's lots of warm words spoken about it. I don't think there's enough action at times. We've got lots of good stuff with BIM and lots of good stuff with common data environments and digital twins and everything else. And when you see the benefits that they genuinely offer, then it's fantastic. And some of it needs to be a little bit more scalable. It's not going to appeal to everybody. There's, for every building like the Edge in Amsterdam or the Shard in London or anywhere else, there's a million other buildings that haven't got the luxury of all of those bells and whistles, but they can still make good use of their data for better outcomes for their clients and better experiences for the people that occupy those spaces. And that needs to be something that continually driven home. Data analysts will need to be part of FM teams moving forward routinely. Otherwise,
thank you.
Will not be FM providers.
I wonder, Mark, could that be as a service? One of the things I'm sure concerns FMs is, is that another employee, I need to take on, particularly considering the range of different digital solutions. I mean, what's happening now, I suppose, is that there's so many different platforms, and they're actually starting to overlap upon each other now. So CMMS was nice and simple before. Now, how do I use CMMS or do I use BIM? Because they had to have an overlap between them. Does that mean I need 2 separate engineers for that? And if I bring another 3rd platform and 4th platform security and all the others, whereas I think it might be more economical just to kind of consider as a service, bringing the data analysts as and when needed, to keep it kind of somewhere, more streamlined within the team itself. A thought.
Yeah, my thoughts are that you have to use it. I'm kind of repeating myself again, but I just don't see why you wouldn't. It's such a fast changing element of what we do now. Why wouldn't you need it? Every other business decision is informed by data. Why wouldn't you be doing that with your asset? Your asset costs you as much, if not more, over its lifespan than it does to construct it.
Yeah.
People don't think of it in the right way, though. I mean, I've heard Claire say similar when we've been at some BSI meetings in the past, and if you're not thinking in that way, and sometimes organisations will be resistant to it, but majority, I think, will embrace it if you express it in the right way. Why wouldn't you be analysing that data and making it work better for you, rather than just working it harder, working it smarter? It's a simplistic answer, I know, Connor, but I just don't see why I wouldn't do it.
Claire, you going?
Yeah, no, I think as well, Connor, as people bring on all these technologies, we're in danger of moving more and more into silos. Because if you think about all the prop tech, people are kind of started off with the hardware, then they realize actually the money was in the data. So now you have to buy the hardware or rent the hardware and then access the data in that supplier's cloud. And then you get your lovely dashboard, but you could end up with like 20 different dashboards, doing temperature, humidity, occupancy, energy, predictive maintenance, all of this stuff, right? So again, in Invercara, the kind of approach that we're taking is that you have a platform, a digital twin platform that then you can grow. Right. So I think to answer your question, then you don't need a data scientist for this and a data scientist for that. You can have a hub of people, that skill set that's already that you're bringing in the data from all these disparate other solutions into one place, so you can make an informed decision across the entire building or across the asset class that you're looking at, rather than, okay, I've got occupancy data right across the board, is my dashboard for that. So, what we're trying to do in the spirit of partnership as well is have these co-creation partners that come and use the base platform and then grow their own, via use case driven, grow their own offerings. But it's all down to bringing the data together, in my opinion, and it comes from the base data, from understanding the assets in the as-built drawings or the as-built models via BIM, supplementing it, with O&Ms, and then the dynamic data via IoT or BMS or by the actions of people on the site. And then you get that holistic view in one kind of place. And then as a service, I mean, I don't know if you would bring in outside is to analyze that for you, because that then is your bread and butter. That's your value add, your service that you're giving back to your customers. We just need it in one place.
Yeah, but on the flip side, then what you don't get then is kind of that, head above the parapet, see what everybody else is doing. I suppose what we've seen is that, look, there's pros and cons obviously for both. But certainly having someone that has their head above the parapet and sees what else is happening in similar industries. And, have you considered this and have you considered that, that the bar has been raised by industry, and, having someone in-house may actually miss the bar being raised. And the benefits of that, it can be smaller incremental changes as opposed to kind of something more. Now, look, there are benefits, of course, to having people in-house. As I said, they're more familiar with the assets, and a business case has to be built for each. But I suppose what I was suggesting is that there's an option for both. I suppose more than anything else.
That's great, and it's always good to have a debate on this panel. So yeah, you can see pros and cons to both. So you wouldn't believe it, viewers. We're over an hour in, and I need to get to your questions. So they have been firing through. But Connor, we will go to that next, but I was intrigued to mention about obviously the return to work, and dare I say it, many of us never left work. We just utilised technology to continue work, which brings in the agile working, hybrid working debate. Now, on a panel such as this, you can come across very pro-tech. Now, I'm going to ask a question of what are the negatives around the overuse of some of this technology, where we've heard about not only Zoom fatigue, Teams fatigue, cyber security, data security. I'm being a bit of a skeptic here, so I'm trying to bring another flip side to the debate here around the role of tech, and it's all positive because there are people out there that still have some of that mindset. For you returning to that lovely office 4 years old, how are you going to get a balance between a hybrid workforce with the role of tech? Is that something you're trying to muddle through at the moment? Is that part of your workplace strategy? I'd just be intrigued to know because it ties in with an earlier debate this morning.
Absolutely. It's a global strategy for Arup, I suppose, to get people back in. Numerous surveys being done. Look, they're all saying the same thing. Everybody wants to be back in the office 2 to 3 days a week, just the majority of people. Who's it affecting most? I think there's a profile from some Stanford University profiling where they're showing that the younger people are the ones that's affecting most. They don't have the kind of the mentors, I suppose, to help them, teach them along the way. Whereas I suppose we would do the more mature generation, look, they're kind of quite happy to have the space. Certainly I have 3 kids at home here, and look, it works out fine for me for the most part. But my biggest concern is the intensity of the work at the moment. In fact, it's just me. I finish here at 4 o'clock. I'm on another one at 5 o'clock. It's one meeting straight to the next, and that intensity is tough. The culture is my biggest concern. How do you integrate the culture of, each organization into the people that you're bringing on board, and you lose that. People are less emotive, in fact, even about kind of considering, leaving. So we are having a full kind of internal review about how do we make the office attractive or even more attractive than it was before. What can we change internally? And, reassure people, I suppose, that, all the protocols are in place to make sure it's safe, high indoor air quality, does that make, bring in HEPA filters or, ultraviolet lighting or whatever that is. Even in the Cork office, I suppose we had a lot of kind of non-tactile, switches for opening doors, for taps on and off. Even the lifts themselves, once you present your access card, it automatically opened the lift. Had all these, really, it was a fantastic building. It is a fantastic building. So I suppose we're fortunate in the Cork office, but not all offices will have that, obviously. But, how do you make it attractive? I suppose you just have to kind of ensure that people feel that there's less risk associated with going in there. What we don't want, I suppose, is that putting up glass paneling all over the place where people are, feel some way falsely kind of, segregated, we want to try and make it as kind of natural as possible as it was before, but taking into consideration, obviously, that COVID has been here and, maybe here for another prolonged period of time. So look, it's a challenge, no doubt. And it very much involves our FM people. In fact, one of our team members, she is spending, a day and a half a week managing the Cork office, even though the Cork office is actually closed, because there's a whole range of routines have to be continue. Obviously all your statutory maintenance, but the cleaning regimes and flushing and everything else that goes with that, managing contractors coming on board. That's in an empty office, So, it keeps ticking over regardless, and we want to make sure that people come back to a safe, clean environment, that are happy to come back, and that they can collaborate and work with each other in a safe environment, be productive.
No, thank you, Connor. And I think from that, it's that balance. But I'm going to move on to questions. Is that okay? Because I don't want you being late for the 4:00 meeting, Connor. There you go. But yeah, from that perspective, we've had a raft of questions come in, and I'm going to keep it open to the floor. But this ties in with your last points, Connor, and others, in terms of, thank you, Fred, for the question. If FM, if I can even get it out, loses the ownership of a physical workplace experience, because we all go to the digital virtual workplace, which most of us experienced over the last year, what is the need for FM? The remaining 40% that come to the office. So basically a question in from Fred, basically querying, if we go to this virtual environment and go one side of the spectrum of the argument, and we say, I guess, the death of the office, what's the need for it? Where does that leave FM? So who wants to open up a comment on that? David?
I'm happy to go on that one. So I think as always, predicting the future is a risky thing, but I'm confident in predicting that office space will not go away. I think the way in which we use it will change. I think the amount of square foot or square meterage we have will change. Again, you've got to go by industry. If we're thinking about office space, I'm very confident saying that. If you're talking about manufacturing, that's a bit different, because the scale of a manufacturing plant isn't to do with the number of people you need in it. So just think about this in an office environment in the first instance. All the research we're doing, everything I'm seeing is suggesting that, that as we're calling it, the hybrid workplace will be the way forward. Okay. And that people have seen the benefits of being able to work remotely. And as I said earlier on, for someone like myself, I'm sure, Claire, it was the same for you when you worked for IBM, the concept of going into an office for any other reason than you wanted to go into the office is just, it's never been part of the way I'm thinking. So I had to reprogram my brain when talking to a lot of customers who were in circumstances where they felt obliged to go into the office. So that kind of hybrid work environment is still going to be there. Now, the question is the work environment that I'm now going into, the office that I'm going to go, why would I go into an office? Why on earth would I go into an office? Well, I only need to ask my 28-year-old son, who isn't lucky enough to have a 4-bedroom house, shares a building, and doesn't have a room that he can call an office or a study. He's dying to get back into the office. A lot of his social life, a lot of my social life is with people that I work with. So there's a huge well-being thing. So I think any suggestion, and I could go on for another, 5 or 6 reasons. Anyone who's suggesting that the office, and I'll talk about the office, we could equally talk about manufacturing or retail space, but I don't think that's likely to happen. I think what will happen is that space will be used differently. I think that the requirements for the kinds of spaces we want, I think, hopefully, fingers crossed, the kind of hideous battery hen smart desking areas will be a thing of the past. They were always a monstrosity, frankly, and should have been banned. But hopefully they will become a thing of the past. If we go into the office spaces that we're developing for ourselves now, they look more like business lounges in an airport. Yeah. There's areas which have focus areas. There's areas that have groups of softer furnishings where people can work together. There are rooms that have got the technology in that enable you to whiteboard, etc., etc. But they're a very, very different environment. Now, from an FM perspective, I would actually contend that having that less formalized nice rows actually makes it more difficult to keep the place healthy, clean, and accessible. So I just think it's yet another adaptation of the industry. And I think that the other thing that I'm very, very keen on doing, and it's back to this partnership thing, which you get bored of, it's all to do with that partnership isn't just to do with the commercial side of things, it's to do with the human being side of things. Who is FM recruiting from? What young people are coming into FM industry? I'm not saying they don't, but I am absolutely positive. That if the FM industry portrays itself as a more digital tech educated and savvy profession, I think it's going to be far more attractive to graduates out of university and to people not going to university but looking for a progression within an industry than maybe it is now. Now, that might be an unfair comment, and those of you in the industry might say, oh, we're already like that, actually. Trust me, the perception from someone outside the industry is that's not the case at all. It doesn't look a particularly attractive industry. So actually that embracing of the technology, that being more educated around the digital tech and understand where it's heading, and massive plug for the IWFM here, of course, and the work you do. But what that actually means in my mind is that you've got an FM profession who is looking to influence the application of the new digital technology with their industry expertise. You know, Connor, you made a great point about the technical people that now work in Arup. And when I say technical, I'm talking about digital technology. Clearly, there's been technology in FM for years, and people often think that. But by influencing and owning that application of digital technology with their industry expertise, that means the profession can own the future and not feel like it's being done to them. You know, get better educated, understand where the technology is heading. Don't get too smart, otherwise I won't have a job. But you know, develop that digital technology education processes that I think will make your profession more interesting. Now, whether that means there's fewer FMs in the world, hey, that might just be a Darwinian thing. But the industry that's left, hopefully, will be sharper, more educated around technology, and really feel that they own their industry going forward and don't feel threatened by technology. Think of it as an enabler to do their job better.
Thank you, David. Yeah, I think I'm keen to get through as many questions as I can, and apologies for those that we can't get through today. We'll pass on to the panelists. John's put an interesting point about this hybrid working, and it's many of the debate at the moment. We've probably all experienced as panelists, because we're of similar ages. You don't have to divulge your ages, of course. But when we started out in our workplace and our professions, there was always leaders or managements that you learn from, you aspire to. Good and bad, no names, please. But when it comes to mentoring and management of new employers, how can this actually be done if you work remotely? So it's that, I guess, creativity, that human to human contact, that body language, that mannerism when you're in a healthy conflict environment. How are individuals going to learn if we just work in this virtual world? So thank you for that question, John. Any points to raise from our panel on that? Go on, Mark.
Well, it reiterates the point I think that Connor made earlier, that the people at the beginning of their career, rather than ones who are at my stage of the career, are going to want to come into the office more. And one, that's how you get teams to perform, when you've got to get teams together to work in groups, but also developing people's careers and developing the future FMs that we all want to develop and come up and get those ones that are really clever. They're going to take over David's job. And everything else. But you're not going to do that by doing that remotely. And I think David might have said about his son earlier, my daughter's the same. She's 28, coming up to 29. She's gone through furlough, gone back to work, got back into doing the swing of things remotely and everything else. But she's absolutely dying to get back with the team she works on. She works for a comms agency. It's all very much about people pooling their knowledge and their resource to deliver value for their clients. And without that, I agree with the sentiment earlier that, you know, anyone if the office is dead, long live the office, I think is probably the phrase we need to take from this. It's still going to be there. It will be in a different form. Yep. And equally, FM and the workplace needs to evolve to meet that challenge, because it hasn't evolved quickly enough in the past. And that Darwinian reference that was made earlier, I think, is very relevant. It has to evolve at a faster pace than it probably ever has before.
If I can give a personal experience, during my tenure in IBM, many years ago, everybody could just work from home if you wanted to, and then roll forward, and so everybody did who wanted to, right? Roll forward 10 years from that kind of announcement, they started to pull people back to the office, because some job roles were like losing exactly what you've just articulated, both everybody here. You know, they were losing skills, they were losing collaboration, the quality of the output wasn't as high as it was when people were in the office together. So they actually said, okay, you've got to come back to the office. And it ended up lots of people left, because obviously they'd moved, particularly in the States, like 200, 300, 400 miles away from where the office was. So there was no way they were going to lift and shift back again. And so they ended up leaving. So they did have an attrition thing there, but they realized that, you know, some job roles required people to be face to face in order to be effective. And so, you know, I agree with what you've both said. Long live the office.
Yeah, long live the office. And other workspaces as well, as we mentioned, airports, stadiums.
Exist.
Yeah, they do, just as a caveat. You can see on Hugh's screen there, he's publicising next year's event. And this is the wrap-up question for our panellists. And thank you, viewers, for your questions. Hopefully next year, you can see the dates there that this event will be physical. So roll on 12 months. We're at the event and we've got a role of technology debate going on. So fast forward 12 months. I do take your point on board, David, about predictions. They're always dangerous because they can go wrong. But in terms of the role of technology, if we're having this debate in 12 months' time, considering the experience we've all had over the last 12 months, what do you think the key challenges and opportunities this discussion would be talking about in 12 months' time? So this is the wrap up from all of you. So I would like all of you to participate on this question. So David, I'd like to go to you first. If we're having this debate in 12 months' time, what do you think the challenges, opportunities that this debate would be discussing?
Well, certainly what I'd like to be bringing to this debate is more examples of the partnership that I've talked about, that I can actually talk about, because I've got a lot of very interesting conversations going on at the moment that I can't talk about because they're under negotiation. So what I would absolutely love to do next year is come on stage with a partner from the FM industry and talk about what we've done. And when I talk about from the FM industry, I'm always very conscious that there's so many different parts of the industry. And I normally refer to kind of, in my mind, and again, excuse my ignorance, everyone here that's an FM professional, but, you know, I kind of think about, you know, a key account manager in maybe a prestigious London or big city office. I think about the FM and real estate director in maybe an NHS trust hospital. And then I think about all the independent traders as well, you know, and maybe the brokers, that, as I call them, people that are bringing that range of FM services to maybe small and medium-sized business that don't go out to the CBREs of the world and the Compasses and the JLLs, etc., and go down to the next level. So that's what I would love to be able to do, is actually, at the moment, I feel that a lot of this is talk, a lot of this is naturally PowerPoint. But genuinely, I'm having some fascinating conversations with companies, not just in the UK and Ireland, but also wider in Europe. And I am confident that by this time next year, we won't just be talking about the art of the possible. We'll actually be talking about what we're delivering side by side, showing real partnership with companies that the audience today and the audience next year will recognise and identify with.
That's great, David. And probably you in the background's rubbing his hands, thinking about content for next year already. So that's great stuff.
Mark, used to get to Ireland.
Yeah. So, Mark, moving on to your dear self, what's your viewpoint if you had to fast forward 12 months?
You called me many a thing in the past, Pete, but never dear. So I'll say I think
it's been recorded, so you can play it back.
I'm going to get that as a meme, I think. But yeah, no, I think what would be, I would like FM to be spoken about against in the future is how FM is now using data. It's always been available to it, but how it's using data to understand how workplace functions and what those occupants of the workplace need to do their work best. or they can deliver their output best, depending whether it's an office or any other place that people are based from. And I think some of that will be helping organisations with their remote working, going back to one of the earlier questions as well. That will be a challenge for us. But I think making best use of that data and going back to David's point, actually delivering it. I think the one thing we need to do is maintain the momentum that we've now had in the last year. You look at the way we're working now, forums like this, we spoke about this 18 months ago. We go, no, I was the world's worst. I'm a handshaker, backslapper type of chap. I want to meet people. How are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. Miss those days, but the world has moved on, and you can still make good connections with people to deliver value to them. There's no reason why FM shouldn't maintain the profile it's got. I think it's been more valued in the last year, some of those support functions, and taking that forward to the next level and it's being seen as a genuine value add.
It's quite intriguing. We had an agile working debate this morning, Mark, and it was about the death of the handshake. But I won't spoiler that for viewers. Please tune into how that led to the whole discussion about the death of the handshake. But there you go, Connor. Moving on to you in terms of your viewpoint. If you're going from Cork to Dublin, you join us at the RDS next year. What do you think the debate would be about?
Yeah, I'd like to think there be greater discussion on the asset information strategy. There's probably 6 different projects that we worked on there in the last 12 to 18 months, all coming from completely different angles. And ultimately, the issue was there was no asset information strategy in place. What information are you collecting it? Why are you collecting this information? And when you get it, what are you going to do with it? And how does that align to the business needs? The single most important document. It's not about digital; it's about data, as Mark just said there. It's all about what type of information. The data feeds into information, the information feeds into knowledge feeds into wisdom, and that allows us then to do decision making. So, I'd like to think that we'll be talking more about asset information strategies.
Thank you, Connor. And we started with yourself, Claire, and we finish with you. If we were joining next 12 months, what do you think the debate would be covering?
Yeah, so I have 2 areas. The first one is that Invercara will be on stage with one of their clients, one of their owner clients that own the property, and giving a really good story, including use cases and the cost-benefit analysis, ROI, on digital twin and the value and the benefit of digital twin. But the debate would be, are we AI bots or are we actually human beings on the stage?
Interesting. And there you go, we were developing your content program for 2022. So I just want to say a massive thank you to Claire, Connor, Mark and David. I did first look at this and said, I'm hosting 2 sessions today for an hour and a half. It's never going to go on for an hour and a half. With the questions that have been brought in, I think we could have gone on for another hour. But joking aside, Connor, I don't want you being late for that meeting. But I know Hugh's kindly joined us. But I just want to say a massive thank you to the viewers that have joined us for that hour and a half. And as I say, you've got some intriguing debate today. Particularly ROI came up. We recognise there's more case studies and information David and Claire mentioned there that really need to get in the public domain to maybe get rid of some of that skepticism around some of the debate today on some of the points we raised. But that's enough from me. I just want to say a massive thank you. It was a pleasure and an easy panel to chair, I have to say. So thank you for that. And you, over to you.
Well, just again, wanted to say thank you to the panel. That you can never kill backslapping. It is a human trait, and I think it's a bit like being in a sales position. People buy people, and we need to get closer to them. So, yes, there will be a measure of working remotely and working back in the office, or in my case, back at the RDS, and hopefully with you all there. I look forward to seeing Invercara at the show next year, and I will be very abrupt and say, don't keep your mobile phone on whilst you're doing a webinar. It's very, very rude. No, I just want to say thank you. I found that very interesting. Being on the periphery of FM, I've heard so much about data and the use of data, and I'm looking forward to seeing some of it being translating into real projects that can be seen and understood. So thank you for that. Peter, it was tremendously it was a tremendous panel discussion. It flowed really well, and I just wanted to congratulate Connor again on being 22 years employed. Is it? I didn't really catch it.
Only.
That's the sixth time it's been mentioned, Connor. There you go. There you go.
You must have come straight out of kindergarten, though, Connor.
It's my birthday as well today, so that's a big day. Yeah.
Birthday. There you go.
Before this turns
what a way to celebrate!
Before this turns into a I don't know, what a mutual appreciation society. I just want to say thank you all very much. This will be on demand and uploaded by tomorrow. And again, my colleague will now throw us all out. And thank you very much for your time.
Thanks again. Thank you.
Cheers.
Thanks.